and welcome to this very special interview edition of the Irish Wrestling Podcast. My name is Mark O'Brien, and I'm joined tonight by somebody incredibly topical at the minute, somebody I'm a huge, long-time fan, going all the way back to his Ring of Honor days, the one and only Donovan Dijak. Donovan, how are you today?
Good, dude. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you finding your newfound freedom?
Uh, I'm enjoying it. I mean, there's pros and cons. It's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But so far so good. I've been able to dive headfirst into the process, and so far the returns have been promising, validating, and exciting. So that's kind of the overall general feeling that I have right now.
That's amazing. I mean, listen, somebody's a huge, long-time fan of yours. It's been amazing to see you popping up in so many different outlets, as well as, I don't know, popping up into various different shows and seemingly being booked here, there, and everywhere for the rest of the summer. So that's really cool. Just what we're going to chat about today, I don't want to dive straight into these topical, kind of clickbaity headlines. We're going to chat about you and your history, if that's all right. So for me, I've been a huge fan of yours. Again, right all the way back to Ring of Honor back in 2014. The first time I saw you was you're in that Future of Honor tournament. I had to do a bit of research this recently. I couldn't remember exactly who you debuted against. It was against Stokely Hathaway.
Yes.
As a matchup, that is not exactly the first person that comes to mind if I was going to put Donovan Dijak into a tournament. But later on, listen, you faced Moose. That was a bit more on brand. What was that initial tenure with Ring of Honor like on your end?
So that came as a product of the Ring of Honor tryout camps that they used to do in Bristol, Pennsylvania, at the dojo that they have there, which I don't, it's not the Ring of Honor dojo anymore, but I think it's like the worldwide wrestling dojo. I think Cheeseburger runs it now. I think he's doing a great job with that. But in that facility anyway, they used to have these tryout camps for Ring of Honor, and it was the kind of thing where you really didn't need a ton of experience to go there and do them. So I went to probably two or three of them before I got anything really. I mean, obviously you get feedback and you get experience and things like that. But in terms of like an actual return, the Future of Honor was the first time where I got like an actual booking with Ring of Honor out of it. So that was actually, I saw Stokely at backstage at Forbidden Door for the first time since he left WWE. So it was nice to catch up, and I think we even talked about that match a little bit. But yeah, that was the first matchup. I think it was just like a setup thing to get to me and Moose later on the show, because Moose was signed to the company at that point, but he was still relatively early in his career. I think he was even if I'm not mistaken, I think he started wrestling after I did. So neither of us had a ton of experience, really. That might have been like his first Ring of Honor match, to be honest. Certainly mine. First or second, maybe. I'm not sure. Besides Stokely, right, which happened like 10 seconds before it. But yeah, no, it was a good experience. It was a fun experience. That was down in Laurel, Delaware, where the Briscoes are from. So it was the Briscoes ring. Both of them were there. Their dad was there. Their whole family was there. So it was a really fun experience. The whole community came out to kind of show support. And yeah, me and Moose broke the ring. He was he was we were both much bigger at that time than we are. We both trimmed down pretty significantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, the second we did like a spot in the center of the ring where we were tackling each other, and I think we both hit the ropes at the same time, and the ropes just they didn't snap, but it was like that sort of loud cling where you almost fall out of the ring and the ropes get really saggy, and it was like, uh-oh. And then I think I had a spot later where I did like a backflip off of the middle rope, and I didn't get yelled at, but I was told by the booker and stuff, like, probably don't do that again if the ropes are loose like that. And I was like, well, this is Ring of Honor, so I kind of have to. I only get one opportunity to show you guys the new stuff that's cool and unique.
That was really cool. Yeah, I mean, the two guys with huge football experience as well. Like, Moose is obviously coming back off the NFL, and you're kind of coming off being an NCAA athlete as well. So I was a really cool kind of introduction for you. And he said, like, obviously, Moose had a bit less experience than you, but again, coming from the NFL is slightly higher profile, so you do expect these to a degree. But even off the back of that, then you're then thrust into serious positions within a Ring of Honor, like working with the House of Truth. You had a really cool match with Mark Briscoe, best in the world. What was that like working? You've talked about the Briscoe brothers a minute ago. What was that like working with Mark? He's obviously in his newfound success.
Yeah, so Mark was another guy I got to see for the first time in like 7 or 8 years, a couple Sundays ago. So that was exciting to catch up with him. just a wonderful guy to be around. You know, we had that match on the pay-per-view, which was obviously the opener of that pay-per-view. It was one of the early pay-per-views of Ring of Honor too, like I think maybe like the third or fourth that they ever did. Um, so that was exciting to be part of that. I was able to work the Briscoes in tag team matches after that, so it was really fun to be around them, to be around their families and stuff like that, because they're just great guys, you know.
Yeah.
They're great to be around. And Mark was obviously fantastic to catch up with him, and yeah, so that match specifically was, it was just an opener, and it wasn't the longest match in the world. Um, it was it was I think it was one of my only singles matches on pay-per-view in Ring of Honor. So uh so I was excited about that.
Yeah.
I was excited about that platform. It was a really good learning experience.
It's cool. I like listening to you talk about the Briscoe family there. I was at the AEW show in Virginia a few weeks ago. I was over just in stateside visiting family and friends, and I
Mhm.
happened to be sitting directly behind, like his Mark Briscoe's parents. Papa Briscoe said they're lovely people. Like everybody in the arena was going up trying to not annoy them, but like trying to get photographs with them, shake hands with everybody, and they're so humble, saying hello to everybody, but also just be able to take in their energy while watching a wrestling show for
Mhm.
every match, not just the stuff involving their own family and friends. It was amazing. But that's really cool. You have an experience getting to work with them. You've talked about a few people you got to interact with at Forbidden Door a few weeks ago. Another couple of people you had big experience with in Ring of Honor. This Forbidden Door must have been just a complete reunion for you as such. You got to work with Prince Nana and Jay Lethal as part of the embassy. What was that like towards the end of your Ring of Honor run?
It was excellent. I did get to see Nana, because I spent a good portion of the night talking to Swerve, who I have a history with the independent scene before that, and with NXT especially. We worked on house show loops and TV and stuff. So Nana was there too. It was good to catch up with him. I didn't see Lethal. I don't remember if he was on the card or not. There was like this pre-show card that had a lot of people coming and going and leaving and stuff like that. So I don't remember if he was there or not, but I didn't get to talk to him. But it'd be great to see Jay again. It's been a while since I've seen him. But yeah, the whole thing, the whole day was really just a lot of catching up with people, even a lot of the people backstage, like the production staff and the writers and stuff like that you don't see very often, because they're not featured on screen, but they're there, they're backstage, the road crew and stuff like that. People from the old Ring of Honor crew. It was just great to catch up with all of them. Some of the referees that I was friends with. It was really nice to see everybody.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, listen, I actually got to chat to Nana that weekend when I was over in Virginia. Um, like within a minute or two of talking to him, he was trying to sell me Prince Nana coffee. So I don't know if you've been tapped up to help plug that just yet, but I'm sure it's on the horizon for you. But no, listen, I was really cool. It sounds amazing, man. Just you brought it up now. So like, how did you end up going to that Forbidden Door show? How did you end up backstage at it?
Um, I just it was through my management group, the Paragon Talent Group,
Okay.
which is Mojo Rawley and Steve K. That they have, you know, they represent a lot of clients in AEW, so they have a lot of connections backstage. So
Okay.
so Steve basically set it up for me. He said, that so many people backstage that, now that because we're talking, I think 2 days after I was, maybe one day after, right? Because Friday I was still under contract, and then Sunday I was at Forbidden Door. So
Yeah.
so we had put out uh sort of feelers and stuff at that point in terms of, but if you think about the timeline, right?
Yeah.
Like this wasn't public knowledge until Thursday,
Yeah.
and this is a pretty big pay-per-view, right? So nobody's gonna like rewrite a whole pay-per-view just
Yeah.
just to do anything, and featuring me, and I'd be unsigned at the point because you can't talk to someone who's contracted through Friday. So it's this whole thing where where ultimately we just kind of landed on, well, whatever, let me just go backstage and say hello to everyone. So that's what I did. And
That's cool.
it's
Yeah, I mean, like it was just wrestling's kind of a weird sphere like that. People know people are leaving or going here, there, and everywhere without necessarily being able to communicate it. So
yeah.
I'm here in Dublin, and I was half anticipating you showing up and say that ladder match that was due for the show. I just had it in my head that listen, just the stars aligned, Dijak will be there, but that's cool. You're at the show nonetheless. I think AEW is a landing spot for the way you wrestle. As somebody, I'm a huge fan of that type of wrestling. I would love to see you, like particularly later in the year, and something like the Continental Classic. Or I was even thinking, like, what would suit you as a character and a wrestler. I think something like the G1 somewhere down the line, the way you wrestle your style, come up against the likes of Takeshi and whatnot. I think that'd be incredible. Just saying that as a fan out. Anything like those, are there any conversations around, say, with AEW or New Japan and whatnot?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say that they're
Okay.
conversations per se, but we've reached out to pretty much everybody at this point just to see what the field has to offer in terms of what people either want or don't
Mm.
want or what they're looking for. I know that there's a lot of things going on backstage with, TV rights deals and things like that. And New Japan's doing some shifting around in terms of contracts and stuff. So listen, I'm not in a big rush, right? I've been under a contract for 7 years.
Yeah.
I could use some time not under a
Yes.
if the right contract comes around, that's great. It has to be accompanied by the right conversation to go with it, right? Because I've been down the road of being handed a contract and said, take it or leave it, and whatever happens, happens. And I go, okay, I need to prove myself. I need to show that I'm a good employee. I need to show that
Yeah.
I'm loyal. And to a certain extent, it worked out. I had a great job for 7 years. Um, that being said, the run didn't progress and didn't
Mhm.
end the way that I envisioned it
Yeah.
progressing and ending. I hold myself to a specific standard. I consider myself and I look at myself as the best wrestler in the world, and I always hold myself to that standard. It doesn't matter what show I'm on or where I'm on or who else is on the show or what any of those things. That stuff doesn't matter to me in terms of wrestling as a whole. And
Mhm.
that's just the way that I've always looked at it. And I treat my matches as such. I think a lot of the time they reflect as such.
Definitely.
And that's my mindset. And now going into this free agency, I'm going to continue that mindset. And if somebody approaches me with a contract or with negotiations or even being on their show as a free agent, I'm still going to approach it from that same mindset, which is I don't need to be handed the world. I don't need to have a bunch of guarantees set in stone, like you're gonna do this and you're gonna do that and you're gonna main event this. I don't need all that, right? What I need is the knowledge of knowing that if I perform to the best of my ability and the best of my ability is where I think it will be, that there will be the opportunity for upward mobility. Because I felt like that wasn't the case in WWE. I felt like literally no matter what I did, I was in a spot and that's what the spot was going to be, and that's kind of where the conclusion was. And it's some people are okay with that. Actually, I'll say this, a lot of people are okay with that.
Yeah.
People would be the fans would be maybe pleasantly surprised to learn how many wrestlers are aware of sort of
Mm.
what they want to do with their business and their career. And a lot of wrestlers just want to do what they enjoy doing at the level that they do it and just have longevity in the business and be in that slot and succeed in that slot. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I'm a huge proponent of that. I love that. I think that that's amazing. I can't do that. For better or for worse, I can't do that. It very well might be the reason. I was never given a reason, but that very well could be a massive contributing factor as to why my contract was not renewed. Because they very well may have looked at me and been like, this guy keeps saying
Yeah.
he wants to be a top guy. Because I told them, I told Vince, I told Sean, I told Hunter, I said, I would like to be a top guy for this company. What do you need me to do to be a top guy for this company? And of course, that's a question that never really has like a straightforward answer
Yeah.
because the answer is, I don't know, there's timing and it's just kind of whatever. Um, that being said, I would continuously make that request and see how I could get the ball rolling and what I could do, what I could workshop, what I could come up with for myself, my look, my presentation to be in that conversation. And there very well may have been a conversation towards the end where they sat down and looked at my contract and said, "Look, this guy desperately wants to be a top guy. He's 37 years old in this capacity in this company. I don't see it. I don't see him
Mm.
being a guy. So let's just let him go, and maybe someday he'll come back, and that will be more of an option at that point."
But
And
like
if that were the case, I would completely accept that, and I would 100% take that as an answer, and I'd say, absolutely, you got it. I'll see you in 5 years or whatever. Unfortunately, that conversation never happened. To a certain extent, I kind of understand why that conversation might not happen because, they deal with a lot of personalities in WWE, and the blanket decision or the blanket kind of concept may be just like, hey, if we're not renewing a contract now, just cut communications with them because you never know if they're going to explode or whatever. So yeah, I like to play devil's advocate in my head. There's the way that I feel about it and the way that I wish that it went. And then there's the other part on my shoulder, the other voice talking to me that says like, hey, well, this might happen and this might happen and this might happen. Okay. I can reason with all of that, and I can see both sides of the argument. But I'm also a human being, and I'm also entitled to my own emotions and my own mixed feelings and stuff like that. So that's kind of where we land there.
100%. And like what you outlined there is unbelievably relatable. Like everybody's been in a position in their life. Like I've got a finance background in my previous day job, whereby like you might necessarily be progressing internally. You might approach management. What can I do to progress up a ladder or look to take on more responsibility? Like for my own example, I stepped away this year. I'm doing a full-time MBA at the moment because I wasn't necessarily happy with where I was going in my own career. Like people do that, and like as I say, you're talking at the start of your piece, they're talking about taking time for yourself, trying to figure out what you want to do next, enjoying your time with the family. I'm thoroughly related with that, and that's hugely refreshing. People being able to express themselves in terms of actually what they feel, the reasoning behind it, without necessarily getting the repercussions as such. Because as I said, you're WWE. Sorry.
Listen, so I was just going to add, like, I'm not that far from what I was talking about, right? Like at the end of the day, all these decisions that I make, everything that I do, everything that I say, every tweet that I make, every nonsensical whatever that I do, every move, every jump off the top of the cage, every single thing I do is for my family. My daughter who is just sitting here, my son who's at camp right now, and my wife who's downstairs working tirelessly to organize all my stuff and keep my stuff in line while she works her own full-time job. That's my first and foremost. So if WWE came to me, this is completely hypothetical, obviously, but if WWE came to me and said, hey, we want you to be a mid-carder. We think that you're the best mid-carder in history. We're going to have you win some. We're going to have you lose some. You're never going to win a championship, but we're going to lock you in at a guaranteed contract at 10 years for $10 million. I probably would have said, yeah, you know what? That sounds horrible. That doesn't like satiate my need for creativity. I'd be stuck in a spot that isn't what I envision myself as a professional wrestler. But at the end of the day, that is guaranteed money that protects my family and ensures their future, and I would 100% take that. I would sacrifice everything for my family. That's the end of the story. That being said, I'm not in that position. That position doesn't even exist. WWE does not give guaranteed contracts, so that it's a completely made up scenario. But I'm just saying that like I can understand and I can relate to that sentiment because at the end of the day, my family is more important than anything else in this world. And that's why I have such a drive beyond just my own personal dreams and aspirations and creativity and things like that. That what goes hand in hand with that is I feel like I need to cement myself in this echelon because part of that is securing contracts. Part of that is job security. The more over you get, the more important you are, the more of a top guy you are, the more it secures your family's financial future. So that's that's the biggest piece of it for me, right? So that's just reality for a lot of guys. So I think people need to take that into consideration as well.
And again, I think people can relate to that even in walk of life. You've got additional responsibilities. At certain points, you may have to put your own kind of needs and wants and desires on the sideline to prioritize other people. And that's refreshingly honest because I think a lot of people may leave WWE and they can be quite open about their desire to return, or they can be quite open and kind of slating the company or whatnot and blotting their copybook as such. But you have that perspective as such that not many people do. That's really refreshing to hear. Like in terms of your actual WWE run, like it was, as per your own words, it was fits and starts. It felt like watching as a fan. As somebody's like always signed for NXT, brilliant. Like you debut initially in 2018, then you disappear for a long time. You could have just debuted as yourself, Chris Dijak. Then you come back as Dominik Dijakovic, like a number of months later. And I'd say you're doing house show loops and whatnot in the meantime. Then you're coming back to NXT later. You're challenging for the North American title. You're doing War Games, then you disappear for a bit, then you're doing your run with Keith Lee that got critically acclaimed from everybody. But like, what was that like? Again, that's fit and start. You think you're getting somewhere, but then having the carpet pulled out from under you to a degree. What was that like as a performer, as a person as well?
Um, so part of it, I do everything in my power to make sure that that sort of thing doesn't happen, and sometimes it inevitably happens.
Yeah.
I try not to worry too much about the stuff that I can't control.
Mm.
It's funny because for the longest time, I've always said I've always had to reassure myself and tell myself to only focus on the things that I can control. And then last night I was watching an interview with Chris Van Vliet, who I'm friends with, and our interview is probably coming out shortly, maybe in a few days or so.
Mm.
But I saw an interview with him where he mentioned that the best advice he ever got was from John Cena. And it showed a clip of him doing an interview with John Cena, and John said, his advice is to control the controllable. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that John and I had a very, similar mindset, because I'd never heard him say that before, but it was just funny hearing that come from someone else, because I kind of made that up myself in my own mind without hearing anyone say it, because I was in so many tumultuous situations with so much happening around me, between this we need you here, and this we're changing this creative and you're off TV, and it's like, and I would spend so much time being like, what did I do wrong? What was my fault? Should I have pitched this? Should I have done? And all of that time and energy is wasted energy, because it accomplishes nothing. Which is what's motivated me and driven me to just always be looking forward, always be looking for a solution. What's a solution to the problem, right? So for a long time, about those stops and starts that you were mentioning, I at certain points I would blame myself, because it's like, the very first time I was slated in any capacity, and I'd been in WWE for over a year at this point, or for almost a year at this point, doing pretty much nothing. And then finally I get this concept of Dominik Dijakovic, and I start feuding with the Velveteen Dream, who's the North American champion at the time. And the second we start that feud, I get the first ever injury of my career. Not even a major injury, just a meniscus tear with a bucket handle tear that requires a full meniscotomy, which is about 3 months off, right? So in the grand scheme of 7 years, and I mentioned this in my letter, I was out for 3 months over the course of 7 years. I placed so much blame on myself for that, because it's like, you were in a program for the North American Championship. Maybe they were going to push you for it. Maybe they were going to give you the North American Championship, and then your career trajectory would have been up. But then you got injured, and then they look at you and they say, this guy just gets injured and he's an injury-prone guy, and because you don't know. And all of that might have been true. I don't know. But the issue was that I was focusing on that instead of worrying about what was next. And I'm in the middle of surgery or whatever, so it's not like it accomplished anything in either capacity. But once I started, healing up and planning coming back from them, that's when I kind of reissued my sort of mindset and said, look, you just need to focus on what you can control, and that's it. So from that point on, no matter what happened to me, whether I was, off TV or doing something else, or debuting in Retribution or whatever thing, I always looked at it and said, look, here's the situation you have. Don't worry about why you're in that situation. That's out of your control. Worry about what you can do in this situation to make it the best situation possible. And I've taken that and I applied it to Retribution. I've taken that and I applied it to the call down to NXT. Not that it's a call down, but just the opposite of a call up. The maneuver down to NXT to become Dijak. I've applied it to every step of the way along that, even the stretches after feuds that had blow-offs, because there was a time in NXT where I had a blow-off. I think it was right after me and Ilya, which a lot of people called like match of the year, right? Like it was a critically acclaimed match. A lot of people said it was one of the best last man standing matches they ever saw. And I was like, great, this is awesome. We're off to the races. This was in my hometown. I've had two. I wasn't on Stand and Deliver that year, but I was on Vengeance Day before, and that was match of the night. And so it's It's like, great, we're stringing together these premium live events. We're off to the races. And then I was off TV for 3 weeks, and it was like, oh God, it's like you get in these positions where it's like I'm the last person to complain about wins and losses because I know that it's pretend and it's just nobody, it's make believe, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That being said, it became very apparent throughout my time in WWE that the winners get more TV time, and if you win a championship, you get even more TV time, and the more TV time you get, the more over you get, right? So it wasn't. I didn't. For the most part, I was very, very happy with my NXT run, the second NXT run, especially because I was on TV so often.
Yeah.
But there were these little stretches that were like super concerning to me because it's like, man, I've been off TV for 3 weeks and I'm having these outstanding matches, but like I lose the feud and then they don't know what to do. And it just feels like this like why is this always I I just always question, like I feel like I'm so good at losing that they just don't even question anymore. They're just like, oh yeah, Dijak can lose and he'll still get over and he'll still have a great match and he'll be fine. But then they don't think about the part where it's like, okay, you lose and then it's like, what do we do? I don't know. Let's take a month to figure it out. And that part of it was always frustrating. Thankfully, that didn't happen very often in NXT. It happened all the time on the main roster. It still happens all the time on the main roster, not just to me, but to everybody, and it's a discouraging thing because it kind of twists your brain and makes you think like, should I be like telling these people I have to win? Like, should I be like difficult to work with? And I never was. I never did that. I never, like I said in the letter, I never complained. I never questioned anything. I did everything that I was asked to the best of my ability. And it's WWE, so who knows what the correct decision is. I've seen people complain about stuff like that and get fired immediately. So sometimes it's not the right decision. That being said, for the most part in NXT, I was always thinking positively, moving forward, trying to pitch stuff. What's the best way to get me back on television, to get me into a championship picture, to have a match on a premium live event. And for the most part, that continuously happened in NXT all the way up until the draft.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're returned to NXT in 22, like you came across somebody who's incredibly authentic. You're seen by somebody who's like, just okay, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be the best version of myself I can be. I'm not necessarily going to worry about trying to fulfill a role or play a part as such. But you're talking about kind of wins and losses a minute ago. As a fan, it was like, all right, well, why the first initial you lost to like Tony D'Angelo, you're losing to Dragunov, you're losing to Joe Gacy at certain points, you're losing to Obafemi. If you were kind of looking at these high level big matches, like, well, why? I know I understand the NXT as an idea to a degree is developmental to build guys up and to bring more experienced tenure guys down to help elevate them. But as somebody who's a fan of Dijak, it was kind of frustrating for a while. It's like, well, hold on, sorry, if he's having these banger matches, we're like in this part of the world, we're staying up till 4 a.m. to watch these events as well. So like when's this going to pay off for fans who are following their guy as well? It's a funny, I suppose, system where you talk about people being good at losing, and it's everybody winning and being a champion is subjective. It's somebody's decision, personal take and critique. Yeah. And if you're not getting that personal feedback and performance management from your management, again, when you're talking about controlling the controllables, those are things directly outside of your control. I can only imagine how stressful that must have been.
It is. Again, I'm only a human, right? But I have to consistently reassure myself, like, look, worrying about these decisions isn't going to change them, right? Like I've said it a number of times. I wanted to be a top guy. I told them I wanted to be a top guy. Obviously, nobody saw that for me for whatever reason. It could have been a number of reasons. I very much doubt it was because of in-ring work, right? I highly doubt that anybody looked at me and said, he's not quite there in terms of in-ring work. I mean, that's as good of a wrestler as Shawn Michaels and Triple H are. I think they're pretty aware. They've told me as such that they're very aware of how good of a wrestler I am. So that was never in question.
Yeah.
That being said, it's a business. So I understand business decisions, and I can see a perspective where this might not be the best financial investment. I can see that. Do I agree with that? No, I don't. I know what I can do. I know what my capabilities are. I know that if you give me the ball, I'll always score a touchdown. This is exactly how I feel about myself and the confidence that I've always had in myself. Um, Obviously, they didn't see it that way. And in a certain respect, I was okay with that. In a lot of respects, I was okay with that because of the consistent TV time, because of the consistent premium live event time. I I felt like NXT especially, like of course I wanted to win the North American Championship. Of course I wanted to win the NXT Championship. There was part of me that was always like, look, they gave you this opportunity. They could have just fired you when you were T-Bar, but they didn't. They gave you this opportunity. You're going to use this opportunity to prove yourself. It doesn't matter how many feuds you lose. That's probably maybe that's the point. Maybe they're just seeing how resilient you are, how much you can, how over you can get while you're still, losing feuds or whatever way I justified my mind. I turned it into a positive, and I said I'm just going to keep killing it and keep doing my best. And honestly, my thought process was worst case scenario is I've shown them that I'm the best good hand in the history of wrestling, and you can just rely on me. You can throw me out there in any capacity whenever you want. It'll always be a good match. I can always lose the good match, and you don't have to worry about it. I'm gonna have a job forever, and while I have that job, I can at least continue to stack up these accomplishments until the crowd continues to rally behind me, and then maybe one day there'll be such a rally behind me that they'll just be like, okay, we have to, like Daniel Bryan style or whatever. Not comparing myself to Daniel Bryan, but just in that sort of same, the LA Knight style where it's like the crowd just kind of comes up behind you and the office almost doesn't have a choice at that point. So I was like, that's worst case scenario, right? In the thought never crossed my mind that they wouldn't renew my contract until the night of the draft. And that was the first time where the thought ever entered my mind. And I said, maybe you were wrong. And
when you're looking to control the controllables, and again, you're not getting the tangible feedback of what you're looking to do, but you do make the best of what you're given. Like you mentioned there, when you have to be T-Bar at a time in the world where like we're all locked in our bedrooms watching wrestling in different parts of the world, you're presented with an idea that like to some which obviously came across quite controversial, just given what was happening around the world. Like it was obviously whoever came up with it, probably an ode to Antifa or whatnot was happening around America. Like if you're presented with that, how do you then apply like shit? I've got to put my best foot forward here. How do I portray this evidently possibly controversial gimmick that can cause me heat in different parts of the world, or I could be labeled as like, oh, I'm now a guy with a mask. How do you make the most of that?
So again, I always look at the positive parts of it. So that situation was basically like I'll make a long story short, and you can ask more details later if you're interested in them. But basically, pandemic hit, Takeover gets basically shifted to TV. I'd say it was basically canceled. We basically didn't have a takeover, even though we kind of did it. It just wasn't. It wasn't a takeover. We did it. I did something with Gargano, and I was basically off TV, and I was told directly from Triple H, like you're called up to Raw, and I was like, okay, great, I'm called up to Raw. But also, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and Raw's like at the PC, and like they're sort of starting to use wrestlers as fans there, so it's this really weird middle ground. And Paul Heyman's running Raw at the time, so I reach out to Paul. He sends a nice message back to me. Boom, he's fired from that position like the next week, and Bruce is put in charge. So I'm like, okay, well, there goes that. And which ultimately doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but like it's just a microcosm of the turmoil of Raw at that point. So I contact Bruce, and there's a little bit of back and forth, but ultimately I end up back on NXT. And they're like, hey, we have 3 more weeks for you of TV where you're going to come out and congratulate Keith, and we're going to reestablish that friendship, and then you're going to feud with Cross a little bit, and then Cross is going to beat you on his way to getting to Keith. And I said, okay, cool, whatever. So we did that. Cross killed me off. That was the end of that. Again, I'm off TV for like a month or two, and I was never told that I was like no longer called up. So now I'm in this really weird middle ground where I'm not being used on NXT anymore, but somebody told me 6 months ago that I was called up to Raw. So it's like, I don't know who to ask or what to do or anything like that. And we're at the PC, so Vince is there, and I'm like, maybe I'm on the roster. I don't know. Am I listed internally? I'm hearing some rumors that I am listed internally, but it's like not in a good capacity. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna go talk to Vince. So I went and talked to Vince and introduced myself. I heard that was a horrible first impression. He didn't like me at all. So we started off on the wrong foot. Um, I think it had a lot to do with the timing of when I entered the room, and I was wearing kind of casual clothes because again, I was a fan there. I was like booked to work on this show as a fan, so I'm in like fan clothes. So maybe he didn't like that. I have no idea. Who knows what Vince was ever thinking. Uh, then Retribution debuts. We have nothing to do with it. So we're just fans watching this stuff. I wasn't at the show where Retribution debuted. I don't know what I was doing, but I was in Orlando in some capacity, but I wasn't physically there. Maybe the fans weren't involved at that point yet. No, they were, because I remember in the segment that they had like chainsaws and they were chasing around some wrestlers. I think what we did is we kind of split up the assignments. So some went to Raw and some went to SmackDown. So they debuted on SmackDown, or they debuted on Raw, and for whatever reason I wasn't there. And they're like, torching the arena and like setting stuff on fire or whatever things they were doing. But none of that was us. That was all like writers and whoever. Again, I don't understand the thought process with a lot of
Blatant
this.
criminal acts, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately I go to Vince again. It's like a month or two later. And I'm like, hey, I make a video presentation for like, this is how Retribution could look. Here's the people that could be involved. He responded to me by like absorbing all of it, watching all of it, reading all of it, and then basically gave me a 5-minute speech on professionalism, which is ironic in hindsight. But yeah, so I kind of thought it went in one ear, not the other. I'm like, whatever. I'm just gonna keep trying. I'm just gonna keep trying stuff. This didn't work. I'm just gonna keep trying stuff. Then me and a few of the guys I was pitching end up as the Retribution sort of extra guys, and we're like, oh, okay, that's a good step in the right direction. And then everything from that point on felt like it was trending in the right direction. We started to see more of the stuff. They started to consolidate the numbers down. So it started to be less and less of the extras and more of just kind of the focal group and these aren't just like, I didn't just name a bunch of random wrestlers. I named these are my best friends in real life. Right. And we're best friends because I think the world of them, of being professional wrestlers and being outstanding guys who can do anything and stuff like that. That's why we all gravitate towards each other. So that's kind of what ended up happening, and the group gets whittled down, and ultimately it lands on the 5 or 6 of us.
Yeah.
And then all the changes started happening, right? I think what happened was the thing with Fox, and Fox said they didn't want it anymore. Long story short, we debut with the masks and the names and all that stuff, and obviously it's like, we all have brains and we can all process that none of this is going to resonate and connect with the fans, but we still keep that mentality of like, okay, we're with our best friends, we're on Monday Night Raw, we're in a premiere, we're opening Monday Night Raw with the opening monologue. So it's like, even though the creative is clearly not good, we're going to continue to work and chip away and make the best of this, so that Vince loves it and he continues to push it. And when fans come back, they can get behind us and maybe we can transition it into something a little more relatable. And that was just the mindset that we always had. And it felt like clawing at ice. The more you claw, the more you slip. And we never stopped fighting, though. We never stopped fighting. We never stopped asking. We never stopped pushing. We never stopped. I'm just super proud of everybody in that group. I think they're the most hardworking group of professional wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, that was kind of always all of our mindset. Nobody in that group ever just gave up and just walked into the locker room and said, hey, we've lost 10 weeks in a row and we're Retribution, we're the laughing stock of Twitter, because Twitter's our only feedback, right? None of us ever walked in and said, you know what, and they just hand us the thing and we just said, yep, we're just going to do all that, and we're going to phone it in, and that never happened. It was always a fight. It was always like a fight in a good way, like a fight to make it better, like a fight, like a debate process where we're just trying to take it from like what it was to just a little bit more presentable. So yeah, ultimately it didn't work out, but like, I don't see a scenario in my head where it could have worked out without fans, right? Like there's a scenario if there's a live audience there where we maybe get over ironically and people start cheering for Slapjack because of this cult. icon or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's a real possibility in the world of professional wrestling. That didn't exist in the Thunderdome. It was just screens going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And were
So
there
it's
really
like,
people watching, or were they people just being zoomed in? But like at the
right,
same time,
exactly.
yeah, like at the same time, like you can only control what you can control. So like if, again, if it's in a real crowd, people might laugh at people walking around in masks or like that kind of paper plate over slapjack, for example. Like this, do you know what I mean? There's things like that it might have been tweaked and altered and made better for in-crowd presentation, had that real life experience. Exactly. So, but I mean, listen, it was something that lasted what, September to March. Like you made the absolute best of it, and you talked about the guys in the group. Like nobody's kind of disappeared from wrestling. Everybody's kept putting their best foot forward externally in WWE. Like Mustafa Ali's taken over the world. Look at like your former tag team partner Mason, like he's debuted with Ring of Honor a couple of vignettes recently. Like
Mhm.
those are people who are like going to keep putting their face to the grind, keep going one step after the other.
Shane Ace is an IWGP Tag Team Champion in New Japan.
I'm speaking to him this evening actually, but
Okay.
really good guy. Yeah. Do you have any plans kind of possibly regroup with any of them? Like obviously, I know you saw recently be an expensive booking for whatever independent booker out there, but at the same time, maybe any plans possibly appearing here, there, anywhere with them guys?
100%. Yeah. I literally I just started a group chat in regards to it because I want to do it more places. I'm gonna start we're coming up with a game plan of where we want to start doing it and what we want it to look like.
Yeah.
I'm having music prepared. I'm going to start sending out because I have a lot of promoters hitting me up, so I'm going to start crafting like an opportunity where they can work with all of us
Mm.
at at a certain rate, and so I'm working on it all tirelessly. There's no when you give me or us the opportunity to do whatever we want, that's when we're all at our best. That's when we flourish because that's the situation that we've been handed for 7 years has been uh for the most part, not all the time, but for the most
Mm.
part, it's like, hey, nothing for you this week. And then we go to the drawing board and we're like, come up with like 100 different things and we present all of them. And it's like, nah, none of that'll work. And then we're like, okay, we go to the drawing board, we come up with 100 more different things and we go and we present that. It's like, nah, none of that'll work either.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay. So we just have these minds that never stop churning. So if
Mm.
you tell us we don't have to like present it anymore and like ask permission and beg and plead and we can just do it, you can bet your ass that we're all going to do it and we're all going to do it and it's going to be fantastic. And yeah, so to answer your question, yes, that is available. And anybody who's interested in that can email me at bookdijak@gmail.com and we will make it work. And it will be the best thing on your show, I promise.
That'd be absolutely incredible. That's something I'm personally hugely excited about. I was possibly thinking maybe you appear in Ring of Honor as another member of MXM, depending on your own fashion tastes or whatever your own fashion proclivities. But what you've outlined there sounds incredibly exciting. I'm sure it'll be appearing on independent shows and on TV before you know it.
Here's the thing about pro wrestling
Yeah.
is it doesn't have to be that. It does you can take a gimmick
Yep.
that is uh fashion models or whatever, and all of a sudden they're ass kicking fashion models. They're
Yep.
they're serious fashion. It doesn't matter. It's pro wrestling. You can do whatever you want. This is the part of it that I think was a bit of a disconnect within a lot of the creative portions or the things that needed approval or stuff like that is there always felt like there needed to be
Hmm.
this like, aligned sense of like everything gets aligned exactly where it belongs and stuff like that. And that's really the exact opposite of professional wrestling, right? At the end of the day, you can give the fans pretty much anything as long as it makes sense in some capacity. And this makes sense in a complete capacity because we're all actually best friends.
Yeah.
That's it. That's enough explanation. Like that's enough explanation for models to now be serious or for me to start joking around or
Yeah.
for whatever lean in whatever direction you need. That's plenty of explanation that human beings will always accept. When you're with one group of friends, you might laugh and do, but when you're with another group of friends, you might be extra serious and go drinking or what. That's just the different
Mm.
personas that we put on as human beings, and everybody accepts that. And just it was a lot more difficult of a process in terms of trying to get things pitched and approved and please and thank you and all that stuff. So yeah, we're excited to really show everyone what we're all capable of.
That's awesome. And you've got so many different appearances coming up over the next number of months. Like something I'm going to be going to at the end of August is you appearing on Rev Pro. You're going to be face off with Michael Oku. Do you have any other, how much are you looking forward to appearing at Rev Pro? Do you have any other appearances this part of the world or any in America that you'd be looking to plug or promote coming up soon?
Yeah, I got so many. I honestly can't even keep track of who's announced what. I saw the Rev Pro announcement, so I know that one's out there. The night before I'm in New Haven, Connecticut, so I
Wow.
got to figure out that travel because that'll be it.
Okay.
I have it mostly figured out. We just got to iron it down and make sure that
Yeah.
all the pieces connect the way that they should. But yeah, so that's pretty much a summation of how my next
Okay.
6 months are already mostly filled up, and I'm just all over the place in terms of trying to make travel work and connections work and things like that. So yeah, uh, right now for the time being, this weekend I have uh, Rise Wrestling in Uniontown, Pennsylvania, and then I'm up to Quebec City Professional Wrestling, which I think is a co-promotion. But if you just look at my Twitter, my
Mm.
Instagram, they're both right there. You can get tickets right there. It's advertised on everything. So yeah, you can see me in those two places live this weekend, and then I got a
Wow.
ton more after that between Beyond Wrestling has announced me. I know they've announced me. I know RevPro's announced me. I know Prestige on the West Coast has announced me. What else have I seen? Northeast Wrestling, as I mentioned, RevPro that we talked about. Germany just announced me. I'm doing a weekend in Germany.
Nice.
So yeah,
Awesome.
there's a lot coming up.
Wow.
Not all of it has been announced yet, so keep your eyes peeled. But I'm pretty close to booked solid, so there will be a lot more announcements coming up.
As I said, touched the start of this program. There's so many opponents I'd love to see over the coming months. Even going back to if possible, somewhere down the line, be it in a AEW Ring of Honor feud. I'd love to see you revisit your work with Keith Lee one more time, or possibly a couple of guys over in New Japan. Listen, you've been hugely giving, Donovan, of all your time. I really appreciate it. I wish you nothing but the absolute best the rest of the summer and the year beyond.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
All the very best, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, you too.